Money, money, money. It's what makes the world go round. With it, the possibilities are endless. Boat parties, Ferraris, designer clothes, spending hundreds of euros on a single meal at a restaurant. You have reached the high life. Some may look at the portrayal of pilots in Hollywood movies and think that that's the standard pilot lifestyle, but the reality couldn't be further from the truth. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some cases where pilots are earning astronomical figures of up to $1 million a year, which is very rare, and to be honest, it requires a lot of luck and is difficult to do on a consistent basis. Nevertheless, experienced captains are still in the top 1% of earners for their respective countries. But if you want to achieve that real extreme wealth, where you can have multiple sports cars, have caviar for breakfast, lunch, and supper, well, a pilot salary just won't be able to do that. I've worked as an airline pilot for the last 5 years, and naturally I've met a lot of other pilots. Most of them consider themselves as comfortable, but not rich. And I guess the reason for this is being rich is relative, so you need to take that with a pinch of salt. I think that it's very important to be open about salary. The transparency promotes fair compensation, as pay disparity can be addressed, and discrimination isn't easily able to creep in. Career decisions, such as staying put in your current company or moving elsewhere for a potentially more lucrative package, are made easier. It also brings peace of mind knowing the market rate for the position that you currently hold and whether or not you are above or below this. Talking about salary is quite a taboo topic in most areas of the world. And to be honest, I kind of think that this is the wrong approach for the reasons I've just mentioned. Pilot compensation is quite a nuanced topic, so this will be part 1 of 2 in a video series that is aimed to provide information and insight onto whether this is a career worth pursuing or just straight up curiosity. Part 1 is aimed at broadly discussing the various components and factors that determine a pilot salary, whereas Part 2 will delve into the nitty-gritty of actual salary figures on different airlines, regions, and even types of operation. So, pilot salary. Let's talk about it. The factors that affect pilot pay include the number of hours flown per month. This is very self-explanatory. The more you work, the more you fly, the more hours you do, the more money you make. There are some contracts that rely entirely on the flight hours per month, but this is not that common and it's usually just given to contractors. Next up, we have aircraft type. Simply put, the bigger the plane, the more money you will earn. There are some exceptions to this, however. For example, in Emirates, an Airbus A380 pilot earns exactly the same as a Boeing 777 pilot, even though the A380 is substantially bigger. But in other airlines like Delta, the different fleets have got different pay grades and pay scales, and essentially, the bigger the plane, the more you will earn. In this example, a Delta Airlines captain on a narrow-body 737 earns $280 an hour during their 10th year of service in the company, whilst a captain on the wide-body A350 with the same 10 years of service earns $349 an hour. This is a massive 25% increase in salary. Bigger planes tend to cater towards the international travel where flight duration is more than 6 hours and provide a more premium onboard experience with luxurious first and business class offerings. Next up we have experience level, rank, and seniority, another straightforward component to the earning potential of a pilot, but essentially captains earn more than first officers earn more than second officers, etc., etc. But then even within these divisions, you get captains that have been working for a company for 5 years and other ones that are working for the same company for 1 year. And the guy that has been working for 5 years will earn more money. So that's where the seniority comes in. Type of operation. In the airline industry, there are so many different segments. You can be flying long haul, short haul, medium. Do you fly passengers? Do you fly cargo? Are you flying for a regional aircraft or a flag carrier? I'm not going to say that the list is endless. There are definitely a finite amount of things that you can do, but there are a lot of variations between the different types of operations. The similarity between all the mentioned types of operation is that you are a pilot and you fly airplanes, but the salary is very different in all of them. and at times it can be pretty jarring. It is important to note that a lot of these jobs are just stepping stones to get to the next point. It's just a way for you to progress your career. And for example, a regional airline is mainly used as a feeder for the major carriers, and hence it makes sense that you would earn less money and eventually go on to the big boys. Having said that, it's not all about money, and sometimes you'll choose lifestyle, so that needs to be taken into account. So in a place like America, you will finish your flight training and then continue to become a flight training instructor, maybe do some crop dusting, surveillance, become a skydive pilot, anything you can to get to 1,500 hours, which is the legal limit for you to apply to a regional. After you do a regional, which is usually like short-haul domestic flights, then you can go on to a major for long-haul international stuff. There are other places in the world, like Europe, for example, where you could finish flight training with 250 hours and then immediately land a job on a 737 or an A320 in a company like Ryanair, EasyJet, Wizz Air. And you wouldn't need to go through this whole 1,500 hour spiel that they have in the States. What's even more interesting is that a lot of these places are not seen as feeders or stepping stones for a lot of pilots. Like, I know people that have been in these companies for 20 years, and the reason for it is not necessarily just the salary, which is all right. It's competitive. It's not world class, but it's okay. But the reason is not the salary, it's because of the lifestyle. If you are someone that has a wife and kids and you'd like to be at home all the time, then gallivanting around in a 777 or an A380 isn't exactly the best lifestyle option for you. You'd prefer to stay at home and see your kids grow up, and that's where these low-cost carriers play a bigger role. Moving on, the next part is much like the real estate market, in that it involves location, location, location. Your location as a pilot is very important, and it's important and critical to understand the nuances in the different countries and continents that you're in, because it will affect your bottom line. Pilots in Europe don't earn anything close to those in the US, but it's important to take in the other factors of cost of living, such as rent and medical insurance and entertainment, because once you get the full picture, you'll understand whether or not your lifestyle could be better in one place or another. According to Numio, which is a cost of living calculator, living in New York with $130,000 a year arguably gets you less than earning just 70,000 euros in Madrid. Rent is 2.5 times more expensive in New York compared to the Spanish capital, and other expenses outside of rent are close to twice as expensive. That's an important factor to consider, as earning more does not necessarily mean you will save more. Compound that with different taxes per country, or even different taxes per region of a country, and you can see just how multi-layered this equation can be. So to add to the complexity, one thing you need to understand is that the net pay that you get is just one component of a much bigger package. The other things could include the company paying for your loss of license insurance, your medical insurance, your housing, your kids' education allowance. Do they pay for your transport? Do they do the dry cleaning? Do they take you to and from work, etc., etc. In the next video, we will weigh up the pros and cons of the different salary packages around the world and help you make an informed decision on whether you'd prefer to work for a company like Emirates, which has technically a lower salary than a place like Delta Airlines, but when you combine the whole package together, it actually might be a little bit more, depending on how many kids you have. I'd also like to give you some insight to why people would stay on a low-cost carrier or even a regional, as there are some people that just don't want to go onto the bigger guns because for their lifestyle and their type of living, it just doesn't make that much sense. This concludes part 1 of this video series. My name is Keanu. I hope you have found this video somewhat useful and helpful, and at least a little bit entertaining. Sending you lots of love and positive energy from Spain. I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers. Keep it real.